kind of like we move on to the next topic.
Wow, look at you with your transitions. Who's hosting this? Is it me or is it you?
I think I'm taking over.
I love it. Well, what are we talking about next then?
I'm assuming we're talking about San Diego and trying to set up a school.
I'm not trying to. They're going to. They are implementing the first academy with integrated schooling for grades 6 through 12, which I think is really, really interesting, right? And there's a couple reasons why, and we'll get into it here, but it's going to be a residential academy all the way down to grade 6. Now, this is the first of its kind, and a lot of people jumped in like, oh, isn't Philly's the same way? Philly starts at grade 7. So when people say this is the first of its kind, going all the way down to grade 6, right?
Woo.
Right, big difference, right?
Breaking
And
the mold.
and most of them are ninth grade and up. Most of them are high school residential words.
Yeah.
Um, but not only that, they have found one interesting candidate to lead their academy setup in Joaquin Escoto. So Joaquin is the creator of a free national scouting program called Alianza de Fútbol, which helped players find home in Liga MX, including Jonathan Gonzalez and Santiago Munoz. This is kind of being the norm. And it seems like there's a visible shift in the way MLS academies are being set up, relatively similar to the European style. They're getting these residents in. They're shifting towards that setup. I don't see a lot of negatives here, but I'm curious as to see what your thoughts are.
I wonder. I haven't. I'd have to do the proper research on this afterwards, but I wonder it. And I think I know the answer, but if this is a common thing that happens in Europe, like I mean I would assume so because I feel like you hear all the time about like some guy kind of bursts through the academy into a team in the Prem or something, and they talk about how he's been at the club for like 10 years. But I also don't know if that's just from a soccer perspective and they do schooling separately, but I don't know. I think a little part of me finds it a little weird that it's like a school run by the team. It feels like the kids are gonna just be in this bubble, like from grade 6 and on, and they're just stuck in this soccer bubble, and they just have no experience of the outside world outside of this soccer bubble. And maybe it ends up producing better players and more talent, and San Diego benefits big time from it. I mean, if Philly has the same thing from grade 7 to 12, it's clearly been working for Philly. Their academy is very, very good, one of the best in the league. So it's hard for me to knock it when there's, proof of other people doing it and it being successful. But I don't know, maybe it's just like I don't want to say the skeptic in me, but it's just that it's a weird concept to me. By me saying that, I'm not necessarily saying that I think it's a bad thing. It's just kind of weird for me to wrap my head around of someone just like their entire schooling for 6 years of their life is just completely revolved around a soccer club.
I understand that. And I think it's a very foreign idea, right? Like it's very European, which is why it feels kind of weird, right? Because we've grown
Mhm.
up in, the public school system where we get to see our friends and they all do different things. Some of them are artists, some of them are musicians, some of them are athletes, some of them are nerds, some of them are Connor. It doesn't really fit into any of them. Um, but everybody had a little niche, right? And they were unique in that sense. Where I think you're right. When you get into a school that is strictly about football, the only interest you share is football, right? And that is an interesting way to raise an individual. I'm not a psychologist, nor do I care about the science of the brain. So I don't know how that would affect things, but it'd be very interesting to see. I mean, I'd like to see a nice little peer reviewed journal where it outlines the shift in the like social, maybe like social anxiety levels of individuals in these sorts of residential academies versus like normal schools versus private schools versus like city schools. I don't know. Now I'm just getting
You should
carried away.
write up the article yourself,
No, see, I'm not a
or
brain
or you
scientist.
could be the peer reviewer.
No, I'm not good enough to peer review, not yet. Um, here's why I'm really excited about this, right? And it's not really for the academy itself. Great, right? Everybody's got a good academy now. They've got somebody cool to lead it. That's awesome, right? It's free to join, which is kind of getting the norm. Fairly certain it's the norm now. Um, Great, awesome, right? But what's most interesting to me is how this is going to change the game for MLS academies across the country, right? MLS is a league of followers, like if we're being completely truthful, right? When one team decides to break away and do something and it shows that it works, everybody's like the lemmings, right? From Burke's physics class, right? The projectile of the lemming going over the cliff, and they all follow it over the top.
Nope, not ringing
Uh,
a bell.
yeah, that's why you failed physics.
I definitely did not fail physics.
um, right, but everybody's gonna follow, right? And I think this will be no different. If this academy, in line now with Philly's, as we mentioned, the residential setup and going a bit younger, in line with those sorts of resident setups, if it begins to produce a tons of top end talent, or at the very least is being received really well, like just in a PR standpoint, which trust me, San Diego desperately needs after some of the things that they've gone through, right and wrong, right? And we haven't really dove into that, but MLS teams are going to jump all over it. And they're going to be like, yeah, we're going to take this nice press, we're going to take all of this and produce good players, and and it stems not only from putting teams from the residence to the first team, right? Not every kid makes it out of the residency, like we know that. But if those players then go from residency to USL, residency to D1 scholarship, right? That again gives a good press, like, oh, what they're doing here is working, because everybody loves a good D1 scholarship, sports scholarship. Trust me. Try to recruit kids all the time, and they're like, oh, well, do you give academic or athletic money? Like, no, you have a brain, use it. But all of that stuff is going to be good, and people are going to try and follow that. So the only question I really have with it is this hire of Escoto, his former academy, and it's his own admission. Like in his press release, he says he's like, we never really developed players in the academy. We just brought them all in to a tournament and helped place them places. So I think there probably needs to be another hire in the pipeline to develop their coaching philosophies and the education pathways and the development pathways and all these things that are required for player development and player growth to ensure that this is a good hire. But clearly he's got the connections to make it work. But like you mentioned, it'd be really nice to make sure that you're not just picking up the best 13 and 14-year-olds in the San Diego area or whatever your 75-mile radius is, and just moving them to different schools and then not having anything to develop them, right? But no, overall, I'm excited for this, and not just for the club itself, but also for the way that academies are going to change in the country. Because again, if you can get this, to work in MLS, well, now maybe the top USL teams are going to start thinking about doing this, right? And if the top USL teams are going to start thinking about doing this, then maybe the bottom USL teams see, oh, there's a pathway to do this and create money and grow our team and be more stable. It's good for the game overall, right? And we have to start putting this in now, because we get called out by a few people saying you never defend USL. You're only defending MLS. Well, here you go, guys. We're gonna tell you why it's good for your league too. Whatever. Mute's a great tool.
If I can unclick the mute button. No, I think it's a good point to mention that it'll hopefully put the pressure on other teams to, even if they're not doing it in the same system, invest in their academy, because that's the direction the league is moving, and it's the direction I think the league should continue to move. So I agree with you. I'm on board with it. I think it's a good idea. I think hopefully it drives more teams in however many leagues, USL, MLS, wherever, to invest more in their academies. And I think it's just maybe like the public school in me that finds it a bit weird, but it's probably a more normal thing than I'm giving it credit for.